Hello and good morning to all the Expatla housing members. I'm here again with my next Facebook Live video, and this time it's for PR holders who are looking to buy homes in Singapore or your first home in Singapore. And so if you're a PR holder and the idea of buying a home here in Singapore, after reading up about all the rules around it, all the potential restrictions around buying a home in Singapore, if all these things that you've been looking up and researching are starting to put you off the entire idea, then you are at the right place today following this video. Even if you're watching this after the live recording, you can absolutely still get value out of it, and I hope I'll be able to help you this morning. Okay, so stay calm. I know there's a lot of information out there. Even for Singaporeans, you know, the rules can get complicated. They change from time to time, but I am here to help, okay? I will explain to you the basics today because, you know, we don't have that much time. I don't want to make too long of a video, but I will start to explain to you the basics of, as a PR, how you can go about purchasing a home here in Singapore, and all you need to know so that you can be ready and confident to make your own decisions about your next step forward. All right, ready to go? Right, so if we haven't met before, my name is Nadia Edra and I'm a realtor here in Singapore, and my goal is to help you realize all your property dreams. Whether it is you own a home right now, you need to sell it in order to get your next home, you have plans in the future related to property, or even if you're renting or buying, I'm here to help. And I start off by helping you with information. There is a lot of information out there, and in my series of videos that I'll be doing on this group every 2 weeks, I will be covering different topics mainly for tenants and for buyers, because predominantly that's what this group is made of. But if there is a demand and if there are people who own their homes here and looking to sell, feel free to approach me and I'd be happy to cover a topic that is related to that. All right, with that, let's dive right in, okay? So, as a PR, right, let's begin with what types of property are you actually allowed to buy here in Singapore? As you probably know, there are many different types of property in Singapore, from private to government, and then there's new property, there is resale property in the market. What are you actually eligible to buy? I think the natural go-to for a lot of PRs who have approached me anyway on this group has been to look at condos. Right, so immediately the go-to is condo. But did you know that Singapore PRs also qualify to buy HDB property, right? And it can be very advantageous for you to consider getting an HDB property here in Singapore. So the condition though is that there are two types of HDB, right? There is the HDB property that is newly built, so the government is either in process of building it or it's, you know, almost ready. And you can book these properties in advance. So, you know, you would put your name into a ballot and then purchase the property before it's ready. Now, the catch for Singapore PR holders, in order to qualify for a new HDB property, the catch is that you have to be married to a Singaporean. So your spouse has to have a Singaporean citizenship. But you can. So it's absolutely not disallowed. You can have your name in the property as well, as long as your spouse is a Singaporean. You may even get some grants, some government grants available to you. I won't go into great detail about what grants you qualify for, what the criteria is for the grants, but if you fall in this category of a Singapore PR married to a Singaporean citizen, and you're really considering the HDB market, especially the new HDB market, come and speak to me and I'll help to explain to you what the criteria around this is. So there you go, HDB is actually an option. That being said, there are many HDB flats that are on the resale market. So they are already occupied by the owners right now. They were the first occupiers, and after 5 years, when they are able to sell it, they put it back up in the market again. Does a Singaporean PR holder qualify to look up in Property Guru for HDB flats that are on the resale market and buy them? Yes, you are. And the rules around this are a little bit more relaxed in the sense that you do not actually have to be married to a Singaporean citizen in order to do this. You only have to be married to a Singaporean citizen if you're getting a brand new HDB flat, okay? When it comes to a resale HDB flat, you can absolutely also be married to another PR holder, for example, right? And go ahead and follow the process to buy this. Now, if you want to get familiar with what's the actual process of buying a resale HDB flat, again, I'll save that topic for another day if there are requests around it. But otherwise, suffice for this video to let you know that the possibility is absolutely there, okay? However, restrictions. However, you're not qualified to purchase a resale HDB flat if you're single. Now, it sounds a little bit like discrimination, I know, but we have to remember the purpose of these HDB flats are to cater for families looking for homes. The reason why there are some schemes available for singles at a later age group, but then typically in order to make sure that new families are able to afford housing in Singapore, you know how the housing market can be, and to be fair to new young families starting out, HDB's purpose is really to serve the family unit first. So if you're single and you're a PR holder, unfortunately, you don't qualify for the HDB resale properties, okay? There is also quotas in place. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail around quotas, but what they are really is that there is a cap to the number of PRs that are allowed to occupy a certain building. And the purpose of this goes way back when the entire purpose of HDB was being drafted, and you know how in Singapore we all lived in different enclaves back then, where we tended to group into different communities and not mingle with each other, and for the purpose of having the whole Singapore become one and united, there were certain quotas placed in HDB so that everyone mixes together. So there's a quota placed on PR holders in a building or in a block or in the neighborhood surrounding the block, and it's about 5% to 8%, and there is even a quota if you're a non-Malaysian PR holder, right? So fewer non-Malaysian PR holders are actually allowed in the same building. So that is something you do have to look out for, and these are things that your realtor can help you with, because we have access to or we are aware of actually where to access the information that will tell you which building has reached which quota, and things like that. So we can help you be really careful when you're selecting your HDB flat. So if you have questions about, I'm a PR holder, I'm interested in considering an HDB flat that's on the resale market, come speak to me. I can probably help you to figure out where, what you qualify for, and which areas to focus on and things like that, depending on your preferences as well. So that's HDB for you. I bet a lot of you maybe were not aware of the fact that as a Singaporean PR holder, you could also probably consider an HDB apartment besides just looking at condominiums, private condominiums. Now, we do have a category that is a little bit in between HDBs and private condos, and these are called executive condominiums, okay? Executive, I don't know if any of you have heard about this, especially since this group is predominantly made up of foreigners or Singapore PRs. There is actually a category of condominiums called executive condominiums that start out under HDB. They start out subsidized by the government, but after so that means that you can only sell them after 5 years, just like the HDB rules are. However, after 10 years, this executive condominium automatically converts to a private condominium, right? So it will be exactly like any other condominium that you know out there. So when it's built, it doesn't have the same features as the typical HDB you might know. It actually looks like a proper condo. It looks, it has that pool, it has tennis courts, it has all the facilities, it's structured like one, it's ready to move in like one. The the bathrooms are fitted, the kitchens are fitted, just like a condominium would be, but it's heavily subsidized and hence has to follow some of HDB rules, at least for the first 10 years, after which it converts to private. Now, very attractive, isn't it? That means you can jump into getting a condominium for yourself, following HDB rules at a much lower price, much more affordable price, and it's brand new. And then you can sell it for private condominium prices after 10 years. Super attractive scheme. Built to help the sandwich generation. Again, a topic for another day. And yes, as a PR, you do qualify to apply for these. You do qualify to go to a show flat, have a look at a new built executive condominium and apply for it if you're married to a Singaporean spouse. Okay, so very similar conditions to when you get a new built HDB. You can also do this if you're married to a Singaporean spouse and apply for an EC. Super advantages, I would say, you know, definitely explore this option if you're looking at condos, okay, and you're married to a Singaporean. Right, what happens if you're not? Well, then indeed the private condominium market is where you probably want to focus. So that will be all the condos that you are very familiar with. Probably you might be renting right now and living in one yourself. And those are definitely available to you for purchase with much fewer restrictions, if any. I can think of right off the top of my head right now, but these are more open to PR holders, even foreigners who aren't PR holders. So if you're an EP holder or even not living here, private condominiums are definitely the option for you, right? No restrictions there. All right, so besides private condos, I want to also say that ECs that have converted to private condos after their first 10 years and are considered private condos are also up for grabs for PR holders that are single, PR holders that are not married to Singaporeans. So those are also properties you can consider. And you've probably also heard that about what you can't qualify for. I'll cover that in the next slide. So what do you need permission for? So I wouldn't say you are not allowed to purchase them, but there are some rules surrounding it. There are certain types of properties that PR holders and all foreigners are restricted from purchasing. And if you're very keen to purchase, you do need special permission for this. Again, consult your realtor who will be able to help you get this permission. I mean, not get it, but at least help you through the process of applying for the permission. Whether you get it or not is out of your realtor's hands, of course. And these types of properties are vacant residential land. Okay, so just a piece of land where you're meant to build a residential home. This is restricted mainly to Singaporeans only. Homes that are on landed ground, so a semi-detached home, a detached home, a terrace house that are on the ground, just normal houses. These are also restricted and require special permission for foreigners, PRs, and others alike to purchase. Also includes other houses that are semi on the ground, such as shop houses, townhouses, even places of worship, so you can't buy a church or something, serviced apartments and dormitories and things like that, which are not categorized in the Hotel Act. They are also out of bounds, or at least you do need special permission to get hold of them if you're interested in that. So again, talk to your realtor to help facilitate this process if this is something that you're looking or interested in at the moment. There are restrictions around this, okay? There are some fewer restrictions in the Sentosa Cove area, but again, topic for another day. There actually special permission for foreigners who are interested in some of the Sentosa areas. If you're keen to know more about that, drop me a line later on. Okay, all right. Now let's go to the next step. I think a lot of people are concerned about, well, costs, obviously, right? Will I be subjected to more taxes, more stamp duties and things like that as a PR? Unfortunately, yes. The government is trying to protect as much as possible the market for the local people, and at the same time wants to welcome foreigners to invest in our country as well, but at the same time protecting the locals in such a way that homes will still be affordable for most of them. I'm sure you've heard of people buying the most expensive homes, but you know, the majority of the population are people who need normal homes, who need prices to stay reasonable so that they can afford a home for their families, right? So everybody, whether you are a Singaporean citizen, a Singapore PR, a foreigner living in Singapore, a foreigner outside of Singapore, every single person must pay something called buyer stamp duty when you purchase any home in Singapore. Whether it's a resale, a new home, whatever, you have to pay something called buyer stamp duty. It's a tax on the buyer, okay? It's I think by now most people know about this, but it's okay if you don't, and account for it in their calculations for when they want to purchase a home. So again, speak to your realtor to find out if you have, let's say, a budget of $1 million, or you have a budget of $2.5 million. Talk to your realtor to help you calculate what will you actually need in stamp duties and extra costs. What does that, you know, if 2.5 is all you can do, you can't even stretch $1 above it, make sure you account for buyer stamp duty and then look for homes under 2.5, if that makes sense, right? So the calculation for the buyer stamp duty is not super straightforward. There's a formula to it. It's like 1% on the first one, 80,000, 2% on the next one, 80,000, and so forth. It ends at 4%. And yeah, there are websites where you can look this up and do the calculation, or again, your realtor can help you do that. For PR holders, let's focus on you guys. There are other taxes for non-PR holders. For PR holders, there's an extra tax called additional buyer stamp duty. Pretty simple, it's additional, right? So what is this? So on top of having paid your buyer stamp duty, you would then also have to pay an extra 5% additional buyer stamp duty. So be sure to account for that when you are looking for your home to purchase. So again, if your limit is 2.5, you want to make sure that you make room for that 5%. Now, if you happen to already own a home here as a PR, and you want to buy a second home without selling your first home, right? It's an additional home. There is quite a big tax on that, okay? And it has recently gone up as well. As you probably have heard in the news, it has gone up. It used to be 15%, it's now 17%. Again, there are many reasons why the government has had to do this. If you're very curious about them or you want a video about that, I'll be happy to do that, but I won't cover them in today's video. So suffice to say, for the moment, you have a buyer stamp duty, and yes, you do have additional costs as a PR holder. You will have the additional buyer stamp duty. Typically, if you're a first-time home buyer, that will be 5%. That doesn't put off many PR holders. I'll be very honest with you. I do still get approached very much by PR holders who says, I'm in, right? 5% is still, and we'll do the calculations together, you know, like, you know, projections, you know, what you, and for not for everyone, a home is a place you want to make money on. I think for a lot of people that many realtors don't speak about, and many people don't speak about, is that there are a lot of people who are just looking for a home to live in, okay? And they want to live in Singapore, and they want to make Singapore their home, and plant roots here, right? And plant your roots here. And you know, that additional buyer stamp duty is a cost that they are willing to take on for that purpose. But even if you want to think about the fact that, okay, I do want to plant my roots here, but I might sell this place in 5 to 10 years, you know, does it still make sense for me to buy as a PR? We can help you figure that out depending on the areas you're looking at, the condos you're interested in, and give you the right advice around that. Okay, right, so what's next? Everything else that I'm going to talk about next, I'll try to keep it short because I don't want this video to be too long. I want it to give you value, but not to be too long and draggy. Everything else that I'm about to speak of next is going to be applicable to everyone, whether you're Singaporean PR, but since you're watching this already, you must be keen about, you know, you might be keen on exploring buying a home as a PR. So I'll just share with you a few tips and, you know, a few things that you need to know, especially to start off with, right? So since we're on the topic of buying, I will take you through a few of these things, okay? Down payments and loan to values. Oh my God, I think I could do a full video just on this alone. So when you buy a home in Singapore, bear in mind that there is, the bank loans will not cover the full amount that you're purchasing for. Again, if your budget is 2.5, and you want to take a bank loan, you can't take a bank loan for the full 2.5. There are certain conditions, rules, and calculations that need to be done to figure out how much the bank is willing to loan you. And that being said, that means the rest of the portion has to come from you in cash. Not all in cash. Again, I'll cover that. So assuming the scenario of purchasing a condo, and we can talk, if you're keen on HDB, there are slightly different rules for that, and come talk to me if you're looking at HDBs and you want to know more about that. But if this is your first home purchase, typically you can get a loan of 75% of the value of the home. Again, the value of the home, not the price someone puts up. So someone could be asking for 4 million on a home that's valuated at 3.6, official valuation at 3.6. The bank will loan you 75% of 3.6, not of 4 million. Even if you agree to pay 4 million for the property, the loan to value determined by the bank is up to 75%. And even then, there are factors that it's not a set in stone thing. It's not a guaranteed thing that you get 75% loan of the value of the home. There are factors that can actually affect this, bring it down further. It won't go up, but it can go down. And this is related to the remaining lease on the property. You know, if you have a 99-year leasehold property and there is X number of years left on it, the loan to value can be affected downwards. Your age difference between 65 and where you are right now can affect the loan to value amount. Credit score, things like this, of course, will, if you have a good credit score, you have nothing to worry about. But typically, if all the factors align, 75% is what you're looking at. That brings us to 25% that has to come from your own pocket. So you're thinking to yourself, I want to buy a $2 million home. I probably can afford it. Does that mean I literally have to have $500,000 in cash? No. You don't have to have $500,000 in cash. If you're a PR holder and you've been working in Singapore for a while, you probably have some CPF accumulated. You can absolutely use your CPF towards this money. So you can have this, it doesn't all have to come in cash. There's a reason why you contribute to CPF. There's a reason why your employer has been contributing to CPF. It's not sitting there for nothing. You can use it as your down payment to cover the remaining 25% that the banks won't cover. Actually, your CPF can be used up to 20%. 5% must be cold, hard cash. So 5% out of the 2 million, not the full 25%. Okay, so that really does help quite a lot. All right. Also, something that must be in cash is your buyer's stamp duty and your additional buyer's stamp duty. So that 4-ish% plus the 5% for PRs must come in cash. But you can get them reimbursed from your CPF after the process, afterwards, okay? You can get them reimbursed, but you do have to pay upfront in cash first. Do remember though, that once you sell in the future, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, when you're intending to sell the place, that money, whatever you use, the 20% that you've used from your CPF, the money used from your CPF to pay the BSD and ABSD has to go back to your CPF when you sell. Plus accrued interest that it would have made had it sat in the CPF. Make sense? If it doesn't make sense, call me. I'm happy to re-explain it to you, but it has to go back. When you sell it, you don't cash it in your pocket. You have to account for the fact that it goes back in your CPF with accrued interest. So again, consult your realtor if you're about to sell to make sure if you need a certain portion out of your sale proceeds in cash in order to take your next step, right? And it needs to be a certain X amount. Do your calculations along with your realtor, okay? All right. Yeah, so the amount of loan you actually get approved on top of the loan to value, your credit score and all other factors and the cash amount can also be affected by something called the MSR or TDSR. I'm full of acronyms today. This is the mortgage servicing ratio for HDBs and the total debt servicing ratio. Okay, what is this? I won't bore you with the details of this, but basically the bank is going to ask you questions about what else you're paying off in terms of, are you paying off a car loan? Are you paying off, you know, credit card bills and things like that, so that they do a calculation to make sure that the amount of mortgage monthly repayments you need to make to the bank is comfortable. Not for you to decide if it's comfortable. There is a percentage amount that is determined to be allowed. Okay, and if you want to know more about that, you know, again, hit me up, leave a comment, or send me a note, because I don't want to get into too much detail in this live video. Okay, the aim is to give you an overview of what you need to expect and what you need to know if you're a PR holder and you want to buy property in Singapore. Okay, there are lots of possibilities. Some final tips for you before we wrap up. Location. Where should I buy? Should I explore the suburbs? You know, should I just stay central? You know, I love living in the central areas, but the suburbs are so attractive. You're right. You're right. So if you're looking for capital gain, right? If you're focused on, you know, I want to get as much capital gain, then I would say easy, focus in the central areas. District 9, 10 predominantly, and then expand out to 11 and so on if you feel, you know, the prices. So for the same budget, you're obviously going to get smaller homes. So be mentally prepared for the fact that you might have to settle for a smaller home. But what is your main goal, right? You like, there has to be a little bit of a thought process around, you know, size versus capital gain. So if your focus is capital gain, and for some people it's not, but if it is, then I would say strongly consider the central areas, and also consider the fact that you might have to go a bit smaller if you have, you know, a set budget versus what you can get outside. Okay, if you're looking for best price versus value, so what you get for this bang for your buck, then absolutely go out into the suburbs. Listen, Singapore is not very big, so even if you're living, you know, outside of the central area, pretty much everything is still very accessible to you. Singapore has been built also in such a way that most of the suburbs have their own set of amenities, so that not everybody has to converge in the central areas to buy necessities, for leisure. You know, there are leisure areas spread all over the country. So really, nothing is really far away in Singapore. I think after living here for so long, we tend to think, oh, it's a 20-minute drive. That's horrible. But or MRT ride, you know, everything is really well connected by public transport as well. So if your focus is, as you know, quiet space, more living space, more bang for your buck, then consider the suburbs. Okay, because they do give you a little bit more value for money. Should you expect large capital gains from there? Probably not, right? Probably not, truth be told. Okay, are you buying to rent out though? If you're wanting to continue renting, you want to purchase, but you don't want to live there yourself, the purpose is to rent it out, then be sure to sit down with your realtor and do some calculations around rental yield and what you can get. Again, now for rental, I would say focus on the central areas. All right, for that, I would say, because you're going to get really good value for rental if you purchase something in the central areas. There are some popular areas like the East Coast and things like that, but nothing can beat rental in the central areas, District 9 and 10. Very hot, and you will, you know, the purpose is investment anyway, right? So then why not maximize what you can get out of it? Don't forget that rental income is taxable in Singapore. Capital gain is not, but rental is. Okay, and my final note is, should I use a realtor to buy, right? In the buying process, should I just go about it on my own or not? Now, I'm a realtor, so you're probably going to know that this is going to be biased, but I'm also just being really honest with you, right? It doesn't have to be me, but why wouldn't you want someone protecting your interest during the buying process when you can have that? Okay, I think a lot of the people have the impression, you know, my realtor might be in my way, or, you know, I couldn't get the best places, I could act faster without a realtor. Yeah, without the right realtor. Yes, you know, then it could be a delay, and, you know, but there are a lot of other advantages that negate this mindset. Okay, we have access to data, so much data, historical and experience, and past transactions that we've dealt with ourselves, but also, you know, projections and things like that, that can easily tell you in the area, in the condos that you want, and a lot of other information we're privy to that can really help you negotiate, right? So someone puts up the price of a condo and goes, I want this much for it, I want 3 million for it, and you really want the place, and you're like, you know, well, you know, they're asking for that much, maybe we should offer that much. Not always the case. You know, we know the history of the building, we can look up historical data, future projections based on past projections, and tell you what it's really worth, and really put you in a stronger position in negotiations because of the availability of this data and the experience that we have on hand. Most realtors are also born and raised in Singapore, so we know the country really well and what you can expect, and advise you accordingly. And on top of the fact that, of course, for documentation, compliance purposes, you know, even making sure that you're actually dealing with the owner of the property. You'd be surprised. You know, you think you're dealing with the owner, you sign a check to the owner, and then it turns out it's not the owner. So we do due diligence for you and make sure that everything is in order before you proceed with purchase. So I feel like, in my opinion, that is, you know, a really useful person to have in your journey for purchasing. And then the next question I often get from purchasers, from buyers, is, well, should I just use multiple agents? Like, I can just activate this agent, that agent, activate all of them, go search for me. The agents are not just searchers, right? There are a lot more than that. They play a bigger role in your journey of purchasing than just, you know, sending out multiple people to search for you. I'll try to explain this a little bit. Now, when you activate multiple agents to search for you, what happens is that, first of all, you have to deal with multiple agents. So that doesn't really reduce your workload, because the whole idea is that you deal with one person, it reduces your workload. Otherwise, you might as well be contacting all the listings yourself, right? And we're all inquiring on your behalf, and most of us have access for 90% to more or less the same database of listings. And with multiple agents representing you, contacting various places, it can end up pretty embarrassing when, you know, things cross over and things mess up, right? Plus, most good agents, the reputable ones, the ones that, you know, deliver the best quality out there, are highly likely to commit their resources a lot more willingly if you work with them exclusively, right? So think about it. If you tell an agent, I want to work with you, but I've also asked a bunch of other realtors to do exactly the same thing, things can get pretty messy, and most realtors would rather not get entangled in that. And frankly, neither should you, right? So a single agent can also get to know you better. Working one-on-one with someone is clear. They will get to know you a lot. It takes a deeper dive to really get to know what you want, right? Your parameters for search, easy. 3 bedrooms, this size, this location. But really digging into getting to know what you're looking for sometimes is not very easy to express. And when someone is alongside you for the journey, they uncover this, you know, with soft skills, with being able to feel, okay, you know, they said they wanted a 3 bedroom and the space was important, but really it's the quiet space that's the key for them, the greenery, you know. These are things that come up when we get to know a client deeper. However, if your agent happens to be underperforming, of course, switch, right? Not following up, not communicating, doesn't seem to get it, then absolutely it's time to switch. So I'm not saying you have to stick with someone, you know, no, come hell or high water. Pick one person, stick to them, and of course make sure that it's a quality agent that is really keeping your best interest in mind. Okay, now that you have a good overview on what you need to know as a PR holder before you buy a home in Singapore, you might have some other questions for me. So feel free to drop a question for me in the comments or send me a private message, and I'll be happy to help you with your questions. Or I might even create another video to address it, right, to benefit everyone else. So remember, there are no stupid questions in real estate. You don't have to know everything. That's what we're here for. See you again 2 Fridays from now on my next live video. Take care and have a great weekend.